You know, this letter that was mailed out by Mary McDonell to I don't know how many people, really disturbing. You know, I don't know why she's taking this route. It's really a sad deal. I don't know. It just makes you want to address the crap. I wish there was some way I could get out to the public and say, hey, this is the truth about this. So maybe this is the only way to do this, is to...
Well, it's misleading.
Yeah.
There are things in it that they're not explained, out of context maybe.
Yeah, half-truths. I mean, the first thing, poor money management and planning that resulted in over $850,000 of budget amendments in 2015 alone. The irony is that's absolutely true. In fact, it's 852,000 and some change, but...
Well, it's a normal procedure that takes on, that goes on all the time.
Yeah. In order to do any movement of any money, whether you expend it or whether you're just moving it from one account to another, requires a budget amendment. You know, and the thing that really bothers me about this is back in 2012, October or something like that, 2012, there was a single budget amendment done by the prior administration. It was over $1 million. And guess what? It was moving $900,000 that didn't really belong to us into another account. That was...
So why is it okay then?
Yeah.
But now it means something else?
Yeah, so this is an example of just trying to pull the wool over the public's eyes. Putting out truth in a false way. It's an abysmal way to treat the public. Playing on their ignorance of what the bookkeeping is.
Well, they're buzzwords.
Yeah. And then, point number 2, his suggestion that the township turn off neighborhood streetlights and form special assessment districts for the neighborhoods that want them turned back on. Well, I don't think the public realizes that there's 147 streetlights in this community. Now, that doesn't seem like very many. I mean, you consider it's a 36 square mile township, and there's 147 streetlights. Now, here's the kicker. Those 147 streetlights cost $40,000 a year to light.
$40,000.
$40,000. What's even more egregious about that is that $40,000 is 10% of the tax dollars we collect.
What you're running at.
So what the public doesn't realize, our millage is 0.6 mils. Of all the properties we have in this community, 0.6 mils is under $40,000, just under $400,000. So the property taxes we collect don't even cover a third of the payroll. So why would you spend 10% of your money lighting lights that are on all night and nobody's using them because of a false sense of security? So if somebody wants those lights, the thought was I'd go to the paper or put out an article or something, or special paper, describe the whole process, let everybody know, shut the lights off and let's see what happens. Right. If you want your light back, then you come to the town hall and you give us your name and address, and then what we can do is, if you want that light on and your neighbors want that light on, then we'll make the process available for you to be able to pay for that light. But why should somebody on the other side of the township that has no lights anywhere pay for your light? There's street lights, there's yard lights, there's house porch lights. We have lights everywhere.
There's a lot more than you realize.
And a good example is M59 at Duck Lake Road. There's 25 plus street lights that my dad used to complain about driving through there and come out the other side blind at night, going to pitch blackness, and he can't see anything because of those blinding lights. Yet there's 2 huge parking lots, multiple parking lots, car dealerships They all got their lights on. So the public's paying for lights that don't belong, shouldn't be paying for lights. Shut those things off. It's a false sense of security. Plus, it pollutes the night sky. You want to live it, yeah.
And there are plenty of communities that do the same thing. Milford is one of them.
Yeah, Milford Township. They don't even allow street lights.
Right.
In other words, they won't pay for any street lights. If you're going to put lights in, if your subdivision requires lights, you pay for them. Not the individual pays, not the whole community trying to cover something. And all we're doing is lining Edison's pocket.
That's right.
I mean, you look at the globe on Google Earth and turn it to the dark side, and what you'll see is lights everywhere. And what color is it? It's gold. It's the color of money.
Color of money.
You shut those off, the electric companies will go out of business. Why do you think Edison and Westinghouse and all those guys, the first thing they want to do is light the streets? Yeah, it helped a little bit in safety, but they weren't really worried about safety. They just knew that if every light they lit was $1 per whatever time frame it was, and I mean, how many quadrillions of dollars in electricity has been paid out since those guys started? So, yeah, I made that suggestion. I think it's a great idea.
It's a suggestion.
Yeah, but we need to have the public know about it first. And you need to have public input. And the object is, let's put it out there. And instead of having, this Mary McDonell, the clerk, try and hammer somebody to make people think it's a bad thing, let's find out first, man. This is nuts. This is crazy. So
let the people decide.
Yeah. And then she's got this thing about, all through this letter, she mentions the DDA. Well, she's hated the DDA since day one.
The DDA is a positive thing. It's a positive thing.
Absolutely. Drives me, I don't know. Yeah, it's a key thing that got me involved in running for this office, because I was watching the degradation of the downtown that I've lived in for 50 plus years. Why do I have to keep driving through a mud hole?
That's right.
Whose responsibility? People come to my office now and say, "Oh, these roads are terrible and nobody does anything about them." Well, guess what? We had an opportunity to be able to use the DDA to pay for something that didn't cost anybody any extra money.
And here again, other communities are utilizing the DDA. When they went through in Walled Lake and they put up the street lights up there, the streetscape, I mean, it just made a huge difference. And nobody paid for that.
No. And the thing is that it's a thing that helps build community. It's there for business and economic development. The world rotates because of business. There's people out there that think businesses are evil, but the tax dollars that we pay in, that 0.6 mils, like I said, that's 1/3 of payroll. Where do you think the rest of the money comes from? It comes from sales tax, from businesses that send their money to Lansing. Lansing turns around and sends us a check for $1.5 million plus, and it's pure sales tax. So how can that be an evil thing when the DDA can capture a portion of some taxes, property taxes, only in the district that it's servicing, which is a piece of properties along Milford Road in the old downtown part, from goes north to the first Wardlow, west to Wardlow,
That's right.
and it goes south to Row Road. And it's just a narrow strip, and those properties invest in this through capturing tax. There's 56% of the money that went into paying for these sidewalks was money that would have gone to the county. You got to keep it here. It's nuts not to do that. So,
well, people don't understand, and I think that's a big problem with anything in government, large or small.
Yeah, well, the thing is, the DDA is formed through a state statute. And that state statute was written to reverse the effects of the Walmart syndrome, where Walmarts come into towns, they build that big box store, and they have everything in it, and it takes the small community that used to be a conglomeration of independent businessmen and wipes them out and puts them out of business.
Right out.
And it's to counteract that, to bring back those little businesses, the bakery, the little pub, the little shoe store, the underwear store, whatever you want to have, you know, sock store,
That's
hat
right.
store.
This is what I hear out there. People don't want large stores. They want to keep that rural community. You hear that word all the time.
Well, the only way to keep that rural is to take care of what you have, which is the rural that we have.
That's
And
right.
if we don't do something to do that, that's what the DDA helps us with. Yeah, I am just an absolute advocate for it. And that's why it's still around, and yeah, that's probably the reason I'm in office too, but it's not my sole focus though.
So, and growth doesn't necessarily mean more stores or more. That's not the kind of growth you're talking about here.
No, it's talking about what can you do to put jobs into what we have.
Into what you have.
You know, we've got vacant spaces. What can we do to entice people to want to have their business here? When we went through the recession, we had a tremendous number of people who lost their jobs from the corporate world. They're never going back to work in a corporation.
That's right.
But they have years that they have to go before they really can retire now because they lost a lot of that. So entrepreneurship is a critical element to making those people whole again. So we need to put together an opportunity for a small business to have a place that they can live and locate. And that growth is necessary. It requires a couple things. It requires sewer. I mean, we need that too. But anyways, I read on here.
Well, this thing about policy, what is that all about?
Yeah, well, here it says his failure to adhere to township purchasing policies resulted in several questionable purchases, including a problem-plagued phone system purchased through an acquaintance of his for over $20,000 without using the required bidding system. It's baloney. She's making stuff up. I went out and I got 6 different companies to come and talk to me about what they could offer, and told them we had a phone system, this old PBX phone system, and we needed to replace it and move into the 21st century. And the key goal is cost cutting. It turns out we were spending $9,000 a year just for the landlines.
Just to have them.
Just to have landlines. $9,000 a year. That didn't mean making any phone calls. Didn't cover long distance. And guess what? Turns out if you use voice over internet, kindly called VoIP, you can fake phone lines. In other words, you can cut back the number of phone lines you need or would appear to need and reduce your costs phenomenally. Plus have an opportunity that, at some point in time you can even have a community phone system. You can all be on the same system and everybody save money.
And you control it all.
So it's all, handled within the office. We don't have to call somebody up like we used to with the old system and say, we need to tell the people or put the message on the phone that says we're closed for Memorial Day.
Right, because you have
We can do it right there in our own house.
Makes perfect sense.
And the other thing is you can take the phone off your desk and go to Mexico with it and plug it into an internet jack, and you are right there in your office with your phone. That's how phenomenal the thing is. Yeah, has it been the best system in the world? It's buggy.
Well,
But it turns out when I go on...
most of them are at the stage in development. Well, it's been around for a long time, but it takes a while for technology to work out the bugs.
Well, what happened was we found out by doing this, we have old wiring in the building. The wiring doesn't meet speed specifications even for the computers anymore. We had an old firewall. The firewall wouldn't talk with the cable system anymore. So we had to redo our entire computer system because the phone thing brought out the inefficiencies that we had. We also were running a server that was running on Windows 2003, Server 2003. Microsoft wouldn't support it anymore. And the previous administration, in order to save dollars, bought a 32-bit processor for a server. Everything is 64-bit now. It's they cheeseballed and ended up short sheeting themselves, and a machine that was only a couple of years old had to be thrown out. Can't use it anymore. So, because server 2012 won't run on a 32-bit machine. So, there's a lot of things that came out of this. Was it $20,000? No, it's a lease to own. So all we've invested in at this point is monthly payments. By the time this is, we save probably $3,000 a year. Not probably, we save $3,000 a year just on the phone service alone in comparison. So we're leasing to buy and getting the phone service and saving $3,000 over what we had, not even including the phones. So when the phones are paid off in a couple of years, pure savings. Now it'll be
how can you argue
$6,000 or $7,000 a year in savings. So, and the fire department's going to go the same way. They're going to save way more than we're even saving. So, and then this purchased it through an acquaintance of mine. The acquaintance came about because this guy came to give us a conversation. He just happens to be the same company that the village of Milford and Milford Township are using. So I called them.
That's misleading.
Yeah, so I called them and I said, well, how do you like your system? Oh, we love it. It works great. So how about the guy that you're working with? He works great. Good, so that's what I did. Now the key is, I can't make these decisions without the board. So if the board looks at it, if there was a problem with what we did, the board would have had something to say about it. But no, it's Mary McDonell, who just doesn't like Rick Hamill.
She's trying to pin everything on one person.
On one person, and she knows better. Number one, there's 7 votes on a board. I have 1. That's 14.7% of the votes.
So by attacking you, she's really attacking the board.
Exactly. Dead on. I mean, that's, and that's the part about, you look at this letter and you just keep going, well, I did what I was supposed to do. I follow the board policy. She just keeps ripping on that and ripping on that. The truth is, all you have to do is go back in the minutes to the previous administration. There's example after example after example of Mary McDonell doing the same thing. Not following board policy in the bidding process. Perfect example is
doing what she's accusing you.
Yeah, like example being, I think it was October of 2012, board meeting. They had just finished paving the street out in front, John Street.
I remember that.
And my wife and I and Judy Cooper, we were at the board at that particular board meeting. It was a campaign year, so I was there to witness the way the process works and get a lot more familiar with what my job might be as supervisor. And what I watch the supervisor recommend paving the parking lot for the activity center at the cost of $107,000. Now, I was in the contracting business, and I know for a fact I would have done that job for $60,000, jumped up and down and gone, woohoo, man, I just made a bundle of money. They don't know anything about this stuff. They were sold a bill of goods, but they didn't do it. So what happened is they wanted to do it without following board policy and that was going out to bids. So Russ Tierney and Ray Polidori, the trustees, said, whoa, we need to follow, and Mary Petchnowith too said, we need to follow board policy, which says put it out to bids. Trish Pilchowski, Judy Kiley, Mary McDonell. The same individual, Mary McDonell, who accuses me of not following board policy, votes no to put it out for bid. So she's voting no to go against board policy, and then turns right around and immediately says the motion to go ahead and do it without going out to bid. 2 times right in a row for $107,000 says no, we don't need to follow board policy. So here's an individual that's...
No, this is in the minutes?
It's in the minutes.
That anyone can look up.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody wants them, I'll put them out there. If they don't want to if the clerk doesn't want to give them to you, maybe she's embarrassed by it or something, just FOIA it or come to my office. Ask me. I'll give you copies of it. It's embarrassing, you know. So this is an individual trying to black my eye so that she can get somebody that she went and handpicked to run against me, and so that she can maintain some kind of a power trip that she's on, and because she hates my gut. Well, regardless of that, you know.
But what ended up happening to the parking lot?
Well, the irony is that it was a 3-3 vote, so the motion failed. So they did nothing about it. But then I got into office, and immediately the first year I was in there, called up an asphalt company and said, hey, could you look at this lot here, what I'd like to do? The failure point's the center of the lot. It was laid incorrectly. They put the asphalt, the original asphalt was put in so that there was a joint in the lowest point, which is the drainage component of the road. All of the salt, all the water goes down in the crack, it freezes and blows up. So I had a company come out with a computer controlled, you know, I got bids, and Allied Asphalt won the bid for $8,200. They cut out 1/3 of the parking lot, the center third, and relayed it with a computer controlled asphalt machine that perfectly sloped and shaped that thing with no seams.
Well, that's brilliant.
For $8,200. It's a $98,000 savings.
I'd say that's quite.
And that's from ignorance.
Right.
If you want to call it stupidity, you could go stupidity, but it's ignorance. If somebody knows what they're doing, and they happen to be in a position like I am right now, why wouldn't you take advantage of that? But Mary McDonell, she doesn't like the fact that somebody's sitting there that can actually think above and beyond the normal realm. So hammer Rick with these things about doesn't follow required bidding process. Well, Mary, that was one perfect example. The minutes are there. Anybody wants them, I can get them. So there's the next bullet point. This is the kind of stuff you got me rolling here now, but the dissolving of a 25-year partnership with neighboring communities for a transportation program which resulted in substantial increase in costs to everyone involved. Here's the irony of that. That transportation program is the Smart Bus, the senior bus program. Mary McDonell has hated that program forever. In fact, in 2009, her, Trish Pilchowski, and Mary Pat Chenoweth abstained from a vote so that they could mask their actual vote, their actual feelings, against putting money towards the program. That was so Barry Sherman was a trustee, and he put up for a motion to put $10,000 in community development block grant money towards that bus program, which was the start of what the 3 community involvement was. That $10,000 is the same $10,000. We now put $12,000 into it. Grant money, federal grant money, that keeps that bus rolling. Yet those 3, in a 6-person vote, because one person was absent, which seemed kind of regular during those years. I mean, they rarely had 7 people show up for some reason during 2012, 2011, always somebody missing. That vote, by abstaining, according to the Open Meetings Act, and abstain is a no vote. They voted no to put that money aside for the bus program. That's how far back it goes where they tried to derail it. Now, fortunately, they didn't follow Robert's rules or anybody else's rules, and they authorized that payment with 3 yes votes and 3 abstentions. That's wrong. According to the Open Meetings Act, abstaining is equivalent to a no vote when you need a majority in a decision. That would have nullified the whole thing, and none of the money would have gone to the bus. They didn't want to be held responsible for saying no, that they didn't want it to happen. So they abstained, and you know what? An abstention is wrong. You have to have a reason for abstaining. You can't just say, I abstain, I don't want to do that. Because then you could do it all the way through. No, I don't want to vote on that one. I'll vote on this one, but I don't want to vote on that one. No, it isn't how it works. That is really pushing the limits of, whether, transparency, if you want to put it that way, which is another thing I keep getting hammered over. But anyways, I had nothing to do with dissolving that. The village of Milford and Milford Township signed an agreement.
So explain how that went down.
When I initially got started in the bus program, which is what was dumped on me from previous years, I'll say dumped because nobody even knew how it worked. There was a group of drivers and one individual that organized picking up the seniors, and they were just kind of running on their own with a budget and always under budget. But nobody seemed to, when I got in there, I asked Don Green, I said, how does this thing work? The Milford Township supervisor. And he goes, well, we'll talk about it sometime. He never would do anything, just blowing me off all the time. So the net result was I go, geez, these people are telling me that it's too expensive. So they don't want to ride it. Well, at $4 each way, that's $8 a trip. If I lived on Livingston Road at the, in Highland, and I wanted to go to Save-A-Lot, which a normal person could walk in just a few minutes, I'd have to pay $8 round trip. I'm a senior, I'm on a limited budget, probably severely limited, maybe handicapped to boot, and I gotta pay $8 just to go get my groceries. The program is there to help these people. We should be helping them. That's what it's about, and that's what I try to do. But instead, I hit roadblock after roadblock after roadblock from Don Green and Christian Worth in Milford. Christian's the village manager for the village of Milford. Everything I asked them to do, they just flat out said, no, not going to do it, not going to do it. Highland Township put in 56% of the revenue into that program. Those two combined put in 21%. Yet they're taking it's 2 to 1, 2 to 1. We're third equal partners. No, we're not.
No, it doesn't sound like it.
And I'm supposed to, as the township supervisor of Highland, it's in the agreement that I hire, fire, and supervise. Don Green does nothing. He has no duties in this whatsoever in this contract. Well, anyways, I made the recommendation that if they're not going to kick in or get, actually start talking about doing something realistic, then, we need to move apart on this and run that program. So, anyways, what happened is I made the decision to cut the fares to $2 each way. And boy, I got a ration of crap from those two. It took 2 weeks and they were all over me. Cease and desist, you can't do that. And I said, I'm trying to explain to you that we need to cut these. What can we do to make it grow? So let's cut them in half for a little while and see if we can double the ridership. Then we're right where we were at $4. So what difference does it make? You're utilizing the bus seats, the transportation time, everything. You're actually cutting the cost of the total operation. Absolutely not. That was the answer I got. I've got email after email that says that same line. Nope, absolutely not. So I subsidized them for a while, my wife and I. I put in $1,000, $2 a trip. The Senior Activity Council, Senior Center Activity Council, matched my $1,000. And all I got out of that was a comment from Don Green after I had to stop because I just couldn't afford to do anymore. He said, well, how'd that treat you? I said, it treated me great. I felt great about doing that. And I don't appreciate your smart aleck comments.
Right.
But the net result is that the contract was expiring at the end of 2015. Needed to do something to make it move forward. The two of them agreed to sign that contract on December 30th. and then proceeded to not follow any of the agreement, which required us to hire lawyers because they wouldn't talk, and we had to talk to them through lawyers. I was out of the picture. I couldn't communicate. I couldn't negotiate. In that time frame, the 3 women on the board decided to take it into their own hands, which by state statute is not part of what their job is. It's the supervisor's job to negotiate all contracts, not them. They took it on themselves. They went down to Milford. They asked Don what was going on. Don lied to them. They came back believing his, drinking his Kool-Aid, believing his lies, and then proceeded to undermine the whole process. We went through closed session after closed session after closed session. And ironically, those 2 in Milford kept finding out information somehow what we were doing. And they did this thing and they did that thing, but they would never communicate with us. All we got were really nasty letters from their lawyer accusing me of stuff.
Now, were you in town when this took place? Where were you?
I was here.
You were here.
Yeah. In fact, anybody that read any of the Milford Times, which biased the heck out of this whole process, anybody that read the Milford Times would have seen Rick's a bully. We don't want to have a dictatorship. That came out of the mouths of 2 of our board members in the newspaper. Yet the board made decisions to do things. They didn't like what the board as a whole did, so they had to spout off their opinion. They undermined that project and program and tried to derail it and kill it because they didn't want to spend any general fund money. But the interesting thing is, our bus director, Kim, I sent her to classes to learn how to go after grant money. I asked Don and Christian, we're going to go after some grant money. Do you want to be involved in this? Absolutely not. We don't want to be forking out any money from our general fund. I says, no. We're going after grant money to improve the program, to help cut costs, to increase the ridership and all these things. We don't want anything to do with it. So my thought was, well, if they don't have to, but why can't we? So I sent her off, and guess what? $303,000 in grant money for 3 years. The total budget before was $100,000. So we got $100,000 in grant money, plus we get the CDBG money and the municipal credits and the smart credits. So boom, now we've got the opportunity to make things happen.
Well, that's working smarter.
Yeah, absolutely. Smarter for the smart bus.
That's right.
The thing that gets me is we have Mary McDonell, Mary Pachinella. They don't want to believe it. And I kept telling them, the numbers are there. It's all there. You don't have to put any general fund money into it. It's self-supporting. But you have to agree to do it. They put off getting the grant for a half a year.
For what reason?
Because they didn't believe that it would work.
Just because they didn't believe?
I think just absolute, once again, ignorance. In this case, stupidity. It's a shame. But guess what? The better part of the board, the ones that got the picture, Brian Howe, Mr. Dittmar, Russ Tierney, myself, realized, that's 4 votes, realized that we needed to make this survive. And we agreed to take it on without the other 2, because the other 2 popped up out of the middle of nowhere in May of 2016 and said they weren't going to be part of the program anymore. They walked away. And not only did they walk away, but they didn't even follow the agreement. They never talked to us. They walked away when they're supposed to give 90 days notice. They gave us 29 days notice. Mm-hmm. And they kept the fund balance money that's over $60,000 that belongs to the program. Doesn't belong to them.
Illegal.
I think it's illegal, so we're going to have to sue them to get that money back. So there go the lawyers, you know. So the only ones that dissolved a 25-year relationship, partnership, number one, it hasn't been 25 years when we worked between those guys. But the one that dissolved it is Mary McDonell, who went behind the board after a closed session when she was told that somebody else would be going to the village to ask for a meeting. Not her. She went there, she made a call and communicated with them. They came back, the two of them, when I was away on vacation, and the two communities met at Highland Township Hall with the treasurer and the clerk and said, we're not going to engage anymore. No lawyer involved, nothing. Bypassed everything. She killed it because she didn't want a program to exist that I was involved in. Something that I was involved in that grew. Something that I was involved in that got grant money.
Because you were involved.
I was involved. Because she hates me that much. So if you go down this list, another one, purchase of 222.64 acres.
Well, going back to the bus a second here, there was a meeting, a board meeting, where the seniors showed up.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, she commented to them and said, you don't belong here? What was that about?
Yeah, it was a board meeting where we were discussing the bus program and what we should do. And we had multiple busloads of seniors show up at the meeting with signs that said, senior rides matter. And her comment was, you people don't belong here. It's like, well, the comments were amazing after that. What do you mean we don't belong here? We're the public. This is our bus.
Well, that's interesting.
So she's the one that derailed that system. But guess what? It's better off now because we still pick people up in Milford because they want to ride the bus that we have. Not the dysfunctional thing called People's Express that's costing the village and the township $75,000 out of their fund balance. Mm-hmm. The thing they didn't want to do.
Yeah.
So,
and I understand the ridership is growing.
For us, yeah. It's gone for 300 and something when I got involved to going on 700 riders now. And the interesting part is People's Express in July, which is when they took over for Milford and the village of Milford, had 12 one-way trips. 12. We had 650 something for the same period. 12. So that's like a $514 per trip expense to the township and the village. So kudos to their getting off the wagon on us. I don't miss them at all. And what we can do now is we can go a little bit further, look into the future, and partner with some communities that actually have some common sense.
Right.
And want to sit back and realize that there's a population out there that needs us and needs that program and needs that support, not yank it out from underneath these people's hands. Those people have no ability to be able to do this on their own. It makes their life. So, and enough of that bus thing. I mean, but that's aggravating enough to be accused of a. And then the other part is, what partnership do we have with the village of Milford beyond that, and the township of Milford? They've never offered anything up to us, ever. The important relationships are working with a county, working with a state. That's where you have to build those relationships. You can work in union with other communities, but you have to have people that are willing to have open minds and be able to do that. That's not Don Green, and that's not Christian Worth.
So you're doing your duty. You're doing the job, and you're making all those connections with the key people of the county and
absolutely
and state.
The Economic Development Group at Oakland County, the L. Brooks Patterson, Jim Runstead, our representative, Bob Hoffman, our commissioner, Ron Folks from the Road Commission for Oakland County. All those connections are important because when somebody calls up and complains about the roads, how do you get them to respond? You have to have somebody you can get to. We have a great relationship with the Road Commission.
That's terrific.
They've helped us out in ways that are too many to even describe at this time. But anyways, the next item, purchase of 22.64 acre parcel of land for a septic field for properties in the DDA. Once again, mention the DDA. She hates the DDA. It's without first obtaining an appraisal on the property. If there's a piece of property, and like every piece of property, they only exist on one spot on the earth. There's only one of every one of them. There's no replications. You can't get it. You can't just walk down the street and say, that one's too expensive, so I'm going to take this one here. That lot only exists in one spot. And if the people that own it want $399,000 for it, it don't matter what the appraisal is. If you know that you need that lot for a purpose for the good of the people, the public, then you negotiate with that individual to try and get the best deal. So an appraisal is going to come in, and if it's $369,000, and the guy says, I'm not taking $369,000, you paid for an appraisal, spent several $1,000s or more on an appraisal, and walk away. You just cost the taxpayers money, big money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that appraisal is just one guy's vision of if this piece of property had some sewer, and if it had water, it would be worth this much, but it doesn't have any of that, so it's worth this much. The real estate people know what those values are. And anybody that has been involved in purchasing properties and have been involved in the cost of land, I understand exactly what that property's worth. I also am the assessor for the township. That's my office. We work with Oakland County. Those numbers are there, but here's the interesting part. I went to the board and I asked them, I said, here's what we need. We need to procure the piece of property that was originally intended to be the landing place for a small local sewer system to be able to keep our downtown alive. If we don't do it, it's going to be a absentee landlord hole. Look at what's happened to the place. I mean, these homes that used to be in really nice shape were let go. Go into foreclosure, the roof's falling down. I mean, all kinds of stuff like that. The health department won't let businesses locate in these places anymore because you can't put a septic field. There's no space. Lots are too small. You have to have a sewer system. That's what that spot was intended for. The prior owner of it was actually going to do that for the DDA district before the previous administration decided to drive them out of town. So, consequently, that piece of property is important to our community. But it had a couple of other opportunities tied to it. But the key is, I went to the owner, and I told him what we wanted to do with it. And I asked him, what's the rock bottom price you can do? I saved $49,000 on that property because that individual felt that what we wanted to do with it was better than the $390,000 offer he had from other people. We got the land. Now, the other part of that is it's an asset. We didn't spend money. We just converted an asset from liquid, which is cash, to fixed, which is the land. Land is appreciated from day one. Always goes up. And if you got a good piece, you know you'll get something out of it. That piece of property abuts to the school system. It's a perfect application for the school to purchase it if they want it, or do a land swap. with where the old middle school was. That were some of the intentions. It's still a negotiate, play the game, try and figure out how to do it. Everything about that is I'm being pointed at as if I did something severely wrong. You know, who buys anything without an appraisal? Well, guess what? If you're going to go after a grant and you're going to do a DNR grant or any of these grants, they're going to ask you for an appraisal because that's all they will pay on. But that appraisal doesn't mean doodly in a scenario like that, because if the DNR were to come back and say, no, it's not worth this much money, guess what? You still need the property. A DNR grant you're going after because you want a park. Do you need the park? Nope. But you need that piece of property to potentially for the success of our community. So that's where that came about. And her thing with the house on the property sits vacant and the property has been taken off the tax rolls. Well, yeah, it's taken off the tax rolls. We own it. Guess what? Those tax rolls doesn't make hardly a doodly a difference in what's collected in our community. And the other part of it is it sits vacant right now because you don't want to encumber the property with a lease at this point in time if you're going to sell it or trade it, because that'll devalue the purchase price. It has to sit vacant until the time is right to do something with it. There's multiple people that want that property right now. So I'm not concerned the least about that one. But once again, she's using something that's true, but totally false because of the inference behind what she's saying. I'm going to put something out there to degrade this individual, Mr. Hamill. I'm going to poke him in the eye with this one. I'm going to poke him in the eye with that one. That's what she's trying to do in this letter. And unfortunately, it's disgraceful to our board. The board made the decision to buy that. She's the only one that voted against it. That says mountains. Another one here. The spending of over $8,000 on a park plan for property the township does not own, the old middle school property, where he now wants to locate a septic field for the DDA. Yes, that's true. You know what's true about it? Her comments were when she said that, who does that? Anybody ever heard of Walt Disney? Designed his parks before he ever owned a piece of property. Had the concepts of what he was going to do. And he used those designs to sell the concept, to have investors get involved so he could buy the land he needed to build these parks. If he hadn't done that, who'd buy into it? You have to see these things. Same thing. You got this school property right there by M59. Do you want it to fill up with big box stores? Then let the school sell it to somebody and guess who's going to buy it? They ain't going to put a house on it. They're going to put a commercial something in there. We got enough empty commercial crap like that. We need to work on what we have. And the other part is, if you want to build community and you want people to engage each other and you want to get the youth to stay in our community, you better have a place for those moms and dads to take their kids to get together and communicate and socialize with each other. And that's a perfect spot for it. So if you want the school to do what you are trying to come up with, you needed an idea or a concept to present to the school to be the ones to win the request for proposal that the schools put out there. We wanted the school to say, Highland Township, we want you to have that property. Well, there's some other bugaboos that came up with it because of dollars and cents, but that ain't over. The negotiations on that will start again in November or December. But without doing the design work and doing like I did by putting together a special newspaper that showed everything, the public was able to have an opportunity. That newspaper went to every homeowner in Highland Township. Every property homeowner got a chance to see what could be there. And from that paper, a meeting was met. 141 people showed up.
A lot of people were in favor of the
Of the
possibility.
141, 9 admitted that they wanted nothing to do with it. The rest were willing to spend $56 a year more in property taxes for 10 years to make that happen. I didn't inspire anybody to do that. I just gave them a concept that I knew would be something that they would like, but I also wasn't 100% sure. So if I didn't go out there and come up with a concept and put it to the public, why would I try and push anything like that till I found out whether the public even liked it? And I got nothing but comment after positive comment after positive comment from people for months after that thing was out. Great idea, I love that park. Yes, there were some who said, why are we wasting money on that? Those are the same people that won't talk to their neighbor. They don't get it.
No.
And they also don't get that they pay hardly anything in taxes to this kind of stuff. So that part, I don't have a problem. But transparency is what that was about.
Well, you can't be more transparent than that.
No, you actually go to the process to put a paper together. And the thing is the newspaper I sent out wasn't even paid for by the township. It was paid for by a whole bunch of business people, individuals, and myself. I invested my own money into that so that it would be successful for the public without using taxpayers' dollars. So I don't know how you can argue with that. I mean, that's intelligent concept selling. You know, I mean, I'd spent my life as a landscape designer. I had to convince people all the time to give me their money for a dream. But you have to draw the dream. You have to present them with the imagery, the vision, for them to go, yeah, I'll give you $600,000 for that. Or I'll give you $200,000 for that. You're not going to do it by me standing here and go, well, it's going to have a bump in there, and the bump you could slide down in the snow, and a mud hole that the kids can play in. No, it's got to be an image of an amphitheater that could be a hill that your kids could slide down, and a farmer's market that has a roof over it. And just look at that imagery that was done, and you're there. You can see it happening. The kids playing in the splash park, fishing in the pond, concerts on the amphitheater that sits right on the water. Can't get anything cooler than that. That's what everybody said. So she wants to bitch about $8,000. Maybe she needs to bitch about the $12,000 we wasted on a personnel policy, of which we hired paychecks and then fired them a year later, and they did a half-assed job on that. She didn't care that we spent that $12 grand, but $8,000 is something that's for the people. Policy is only for 20 people in a building. That design was for 19,400 and some odd people, and more from other communities to enjoy. Events, fireworks, all those things right there, where everybody can congregate, get to know each other, laugh, have fun. That's what that's about. His request to support a tax increase to pay for more parks. I never requested a tax increase. All I said, would you be willing to spend $56 more a year to have that for 10 years? You answer it. I didn't answer it. I asked the public to answer it. The public said, yeah, sure, that's a great idea. 141 people, 9 said no, the rest said yes. I think the percentages are pretty indicative. Tell me what public meetings that Highland ever had that had 140 people show up, unless it was there as a lynch mob to stop somebody from doing something stupid. And that never really happened much because there was no transparency in the previous boards that even would include people into the concept that there was something going on. You talk about under the table stuff, holy smokes. And there's plenty of evidence there, and anybody wants to know about it, just call me or stop in. His need to control everyone and everything in the township as evidenced by his constant monitoring of cameras and board member phone records. That is so bogus it's sick. The one that constantly monitors is her sitting in her office watching a monitor for her doors. I don't have any cameras in my hallway. I couldn't care less to take the time to be watching a monitor because, number one, I got work to do. It's like, if you got so much time that you can, and every time I go in her office, that was on her screen. It's never on mine. So it's that the one who yells the loudest is the one that's actually doing it, you know. So, and then the monitoring board member phone records. Yeah, I looked at hers because I was trying to figure out how did the bus thing go the way it did back in May. How did those two come here to our town hall? How did that communication happen? And what it turned out is our phone system has a really interesting component to it. I typed in phone calls from the Village of Milford, their phone number, for a year. 0. Huh, they didn't call here. Yet, I got an email while I was in Peru on vacation in May that said that Don and Christian contacted Mary and wanted to have a meeting, and so they had a meeting while I wasn't there. Convenient, you know, the day after I left. Convenient I wasn't there. And in the world could that happen? If they didn't call, how did that happen? So I type in the Township of Milford phone number. 0 calls. And ironically, 0 calls for 2 years from them. So I go, how many calls to the Village of Milford from our phone system? Bing! Up pops the clerks. And it just happens to be a few days before I went on vacation. And it's a longer story than that. But I look at it and I go, well, that pretty much details the whole scenario there. So did I monitor the phone calls? No. All I had to do is type in a request, just like you would on the internet. How many phone calls?
And that's just this one time, not like it said in the letter.
Constant monitoring of cameras and board member phone calls.
Well, again,
that's bogus. It's bogus. She's embarrassed because she got busted for going behind the back of our lawyer and our board outside of the closed session and had a conversation. She refuses to admit that she had the conversation. Yet somehow they made the communication that those two were going to show up 2 days after I left on vacation to tell us that they weren't going to be involved anymore. Yet they didn't call. So they didn't instigate it. Our in-house official did because she wanted to black my eye. And she's been doing it since day one. So I'm going to go on here because this is just driving me nuts thinking about this stuff. I don't try to control everyone either. The only control there is a board. I have 1 vote. I can't make anybody do anything. If you don't like what I'm doing, you vote no. Wow. You know, she has a huge no record. I think that a lot of people saw the chart that was in the newspaper. I think she's at 77 no votes now. Yeah, I'm paying attention. 77 to like maybe 24 or 26 max for the others. It might be 27. The rest of the board is looking and working together. They don't agree, and you can see by their no votes. But that is ludicrous. It points to a behavior that this letter points to. An out of control, unhappy individual that obviously wanted to be supervisor, but didn't have the gumption or courage to go against me. So she tried once with Catherine Christian a couple of, 4 years ago, and that failed. And then she found out she couldn't control me in office like she did the other board members prior to me getting in there through her terror tactics. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, the woman she's a negative Nelly. She just hates me, and she's going to vote against me at the expense of the community. That's ludicrous. It's sick, and it's disturbing, and it's uncalled for behavior. She accuses me of all these things, but everything in here has a point that she's mismaking. Let's see here. Poor personnel management resulted in unnecessary increases in personnel expenses. That's as bogus as you can get. Here's what went on with the personnel expenses. That personnel policy that we paid $12,000 for, part of what we did is we took away legacy costs that would set us up for future liability in the form of accrued or collected vacation time. And we eliminated that going forward. Well, you can't just eliminate it when you had people that were here prior to that point in time. You have to pay them out for the time that they didn't collect, because that was the previous policy. That cost a bunch of money. But what it did is it stopped it dead. It won't go on anymore. So we don't ever have to, the public doesn't ever have to worry about paying out for something that people didn't collect. If you don't use it, you lose it. You can't accrue that stuff, you know. So, yeah, there were some expenses there. But it didn't put us over budget. We were still well within budget. So the personnel expenses, that's bogus. She just wants to make it seem like she was, for lack of a better term, the Virgin Mary and not capable of doing anything wrong. You know, I don't know how else to put that, but she's not a perfect person. None of us are. And she's really demonstrating how low on the totem pole she is in terms of being a good Christian. So, yeah, that's my opinion, but what the heck. Then she says his single-minded focus on the DDA. Now we're back to where he owns several properties. He's often stated the only reason he ran for supervisor was that the prior supervisor, Trish Pilchowski, would not appoint him to the DDA. Well, once again, it's one of those lines that got truth, but put in a format to make it look like that's a bad thing. So, do I have a single-minded focus? Not at all. I have a 30,000-foot focus. I look down at our community and I go, where is the spot that supplies the energy and the power to grow the community? It's the downtown. It's where it started. All that property where all those people live in, all those houses, was farmland before. None of those places were there. And a township can't affect any of those properties in any way, shape, or form other than tax them. So what are we going to do for you? We don't own the roads, so the county roads controls the roads, so we can't do anything there. We don't collect taxes for the roads. We collect them for the county, but we don't get any revenue for that. So the only thing that you can really do to have an effect on everybody is to add value to something that grows the value for everybody else. That's business and economic development. And that occurs through a downtown development authority by a statute. It's an awesome tool. You're supposed to work with the township government and the DDA. The DDA is an autonomous board that can't be told what to do by the township board for a reason. It's so that at times you can get some things done when you have a board that just isn't very cooperative. But when you put the two together, you can make a huge difference in your community as a whole. So consequently, how many years did we have to put up with a mud hole right in downtown every time it rained? I mean, cars driving through it, water splashing 10 feet in the air, a lake on Governor Crapo every time it rained. County didn't give a rat about it. They just come in with a road grader and grade some more gravel in the hole, and that's the end of it. It took the DDA to clean that up. The irony there is Trish Pilchowski, as supervisor, is automatically on the Downtown Development Authority by statute. There's a reason for that. The reason is that's a liaison between the DDA and the Township Board. But that Township Board that she was on wanted to kill that DDA because it had collected taxes that they felt they were owed and that they could do more with. They didn't get the picture. The picture was not taking taxes from anybody. It was just redirecting them and allowing them to stay in the community and do something good with it for the broader property values. So they hated it. Trish Pilchowski hated it. That board set out on a crash course to kill it and take the money back. But they didn't even understand that if they took the money back, the township part, the part that I manage, wouldn't get squat because it has to be divided up amongst the properties or the people who are giving up some of their capture. The library gives up some capture, the township gives up some capture, the police, the fire, Oakland County, Oakland Community College. So, $500,000 in cash because the township board wouldn't allow the DDA to bond because they wouldn't give their blessing to the bond. They just wanted to save money until they could do a project. You can't sit on money for 10 years to save up enough to make something happen. It states right in the statutes, DDA statute. You leverage your TIF dollars to do bigger projects for the community. It's no different than you buying a car. Who can afford a $40,000 to $60,000 car now? You don't have. Who has cash for that? Practically nobody. So you leverage your paycheck. It's the same concept. You end up with your wonderful car, or your house, or your boat, or airplane, or whatever you do. But you leverage it. So that's what that's about. And so the net result is that you've got an opportunity here of which Trish Pilchowski wants to kill. So I realized that, and I go to the DDA board. I said, we've got a board that wants to do away with this. Finally got a majority of the board to understand, yeah, she was doing the things. She was doing the stuff to take it away. We blocked that. Well, one of the things that she was doing was that you have to, by statute, have to have 8 board members. Now, she had sent out a request for board members several months prior, and I applied. And then she decided, nope, I'm going to keep it at 7, which is statutorily wrong. That means you're not doing what you're supposed to do. They fired the DDA director, which by statute you have to have a full-time DDA director. And she said, we're going to rewrite the TIF plan. Those 3 elements are the 3 things you need to do to kill the DDA, because I hired a lawyer to find out. And I looked at her and I said, you need to have 8 people on this board, and I'm asking you to be on the board. Sent you a letter. She wouldn't do it. So I went to the clerk, Mary McDonell, surprisingly enough, and said, I don't understand why she's not doing her job of appointing somebody to the board. So it got on the agenda. Our DDA board shows up at the meeting. Trish Pilchowski gets to the point where the agenda item comes up, and she goes, appoint a new DDA board member. She goes, currently there's no qualified applicants, and moves right on. I had to wait till the end of the meeting where the public comment is, and I stood up, raised my hand, and she says, what do you want? Just like that. I said, I'd like to know why I'm not qualified to be on the DDA board. And her answer was, quote, as long as I'm supervisor, you will never be on the DDA board. My head said, if you want to be on the DDA board, Rick, all you have to be is supervisor. That's when I made the decision that I would run for that position. Because if you want to make the DDA successful, You need to make it successful by making the township successful, which means work together, maximize your skill sets, maximize your ability to leverage dollars that you can't do in a normal format with a township organization. And you do that by being the person who appoints the people to the DDA board, and by law, you're automatically on it. I was never on the DDA board until I became township supervisor, but I drove the bus from the back seat. I drove the design work for that streetscape from the back seat. And year after year, 2010, 2011, the boards denied, the township board denied the DDA board their blessing on a bond to carry forward. 2012, I ran for office, and in 2013, we put in the streetscape that we have today. Yes, I was driven by that, but that's only one small piece of what needs to be done. One tiny piece, but it's so critical to our community that these people should be ashamed of not understanding how it works. Now we got Barry Sherman, who flat out in 2011, the last time we went before they had the election, in a meeting, I think it was January of 2011, flat out said our board had fully intended to do away with the DDA. The DDA board is sitting in the audience going, what the? Just after we gave them a presentation. That's a clue. Now Barry Sherman's out there trying to, find ways to make me look like I'm doing something illegal because I own properties in downtown Highland. Yeah. Right now we're sitting in my wife's office at her, quote, kitchen table in her office, which is in downtown Highland. Built here specifically in 2007 to be a part of the community, to be a business in the community. What is wrong with that? And I own a building at the corner of Livingston and Milford Road. And that building belongs to, used to belong to Paul Mecklenburg. He had a problem where it might have gone into foreclosure. So I helped the man by paying off the debt so that he wouldn't lose the building. We have 5 businesses in that building and 3 apartments. All those people would probably have been out of the building. And it may have been vacant after that. But I helped somebody maintain their life in that building. Everything has stayed exactly the same as when Paul owned it. As far as I'm concerned, he still owns it.
Well, now, it says here several properties.
Yeah, I used to own, I had the building where the artist palette was, had the purple shutters on it. I bought that in 2012 before I got in office. My wife and I had 100 shares of Apple stock that we paid $17 a share for. The house came up for sale. Apple stock was riding as high as it's ever been. And I made an offer to an individual that owned that house that was equal to the value of those 100 shares of Apple stock. Put an investment that would be solid instead of this roller coaster ride of stock, converted it to an asset, a fixed asset, and also did it because I wanted somebody to occupy that place that would put a business in it someday and maybe live there too.
Oh, once again, that's working smart.
Yeah, and not to enrich my personal life, but guess what? I have a right, as any citizen does, to make a living beyond this job here. So I can't invest in something that's going to pay me later in life. I mean, that's what it's called. You invest so that you get a return on your dollar. I retired in 2006. I didn't need this job. I was procuring my income for years to come. And then I took the job. don't own that house anymore. You know why? Because now somebody lives there that moved in from another community, and the Von Buskirks, Jenny Von Buskirk, Jen's Ugly Pies, wants to live in downtown Highland. Asked me, hey, Mr. Hamill, do you know anybody who might have a property here where we could move? We're getting pushed out of our rental house that we're in. And I looked at that and I thought, you know what? You guys are the right people for that. So my wife and I sold them that house for peanuts so that they could be successful, because we were successful with the Apple stock. We made money. We turned the property over. We sold that so far under market price. But we did it because it enriches somebody else's life. Like we were enriched by the beauty of being able to do those types of investments.
Well, that's your character.
Just like Mr. Mecklenburg.
Mm-hmm.
There's a guy that had some bad times with the economy, like many, many did. But a friend of mine, I'm not going to let a friend go down if I have the wherewithal to make it work. I did that. No intention on ever making that $1 million by owning property and trying to get a sewer in. You know what? You have to have the sewer. Ain't crap going to happen here unless you do play on the sewer thing. But so, yeah, DDA is important to me. The DDA is important to everybody in this community. It's going to go away in 2025. And we're not going to have that opportunity anymore. Anybody that wants to do anything is going to have to pay out of their pocket to do anything. We need to make it happen now and take advantage of those things. So, yeah, I believe in that. But guess what? Trish Pilchowski, Mary McDonell, Barry Sherman, shame on them. And right now they're behaving like they are by trying to support this individual that's really nothing more than a puppet. They're trying to support an individual that they're going to control and put an end to all of this. Because they have no vision. They have no skill sets that are going to put them in a place where they would know what to do with any of this. The maximum skill sets that Mary McDonell has is sitting in an office and playing secretary with a title of clerk that she earned from conning people into believing that she was a good person. This letter proves to me that she is not a good person, because who would send this out to the public to belittle somebody else so they could gain control? This is a sick move. Never in my life have I ever attempted to do anything like that, or would I think to do it. I've been baffled by these things all 4 years of her doing stuff like this to me, setting me up so that she could get rid of me. But that's her thing. So anyways,
she's trying to make you out as the bully.
Right. Well, that's the last thing she
here.
The last thing she says is in this bullet point thing: the use of his position on the board to criticize, demean, manipulate, bully, and ostracize fellow board members, adjoining communities, and other community leaders that don't get along with his vision. I think what she's doing here is she's using her position on the board as a clerk with a long-standing appearance of being a really good person, but at the same time in the house having somebody in the doghouse all the time, never happy with somebody, always has to be treated meanly. Multiple people in that building just so afraid of her that they can't stand it. And I've had 4 years of it. I'll take it on my shoulders because I'm elected and she can't get rid of me. But she tortures other people because she loves it. So she criticizes everything I do. She demeans me in the newspaper. She manipulates things by playing puppeteer. She bullies by putting things once again in the newspaper and doing things within the building to try and manipulate. And she ostracized at least 4 board members of 7. If you live in a glass house, don't throw stones. That's my lesson in this whole thing. This individual is so unhappy and has such a hateful consideration for me. She doesn't deserve to be in the public's pay. She needs to go home. And I have never done anything to her to deserve this. And her husband's just as mean. Just as mean. Malicious on Facebook. They have nothing to say to anybody that isn't malicious if it isn't in their favor. Yeah, throw Catherine Christian under the bus twice. Manipulate her. Throw Kevin Curtis under the bus. If you wanted to run for supervisor, Mary McDonell, you should have run. But you know what? You knew you couldn't win against me. So all you could do is try and belittle me, demean me, ostracize me, what are the other words? Bully me, and criticize me. In every mode you could except face-to-face in the public at a board meeting. So that's my answer to these questions. I mean, it sounds like I went on a rant, but geez, Joe, this baffles me. I mean, I look at this letter and I go, wow. Who'd she send it to? How many people? Well, I knocked on doors. And I talked to people that got this letter. And you know what? Because so many people think she's a perfect individual, they wanted to believe it until I explained it. But I can't take 35 minutes at every door. Like this conversation was probably 35, 40. It might even be an hour. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't take that time to talk to everybody about that. To try and undo the damage that she's done to our community by bisecting it with a lie.
Oh, and it clearly is very damaging because everything you talked about the DDA, everything about the DDA in this letter, she wants to destroy, and it's for the good of every person in the community. Everyone. Rich or poor, known and unknown, everybody.
Yeah. Well, this type of thing, I've got 4 generations of Hamels alive in this community. 4 generations. This demeans 4 generations. This meanness goes against 4 generations of people who someday this will pop back up and it'll be the black mark put on somebody that was just totally unfortunate. I would never think of doing this to anybody ever, because my goal is to give and give and give. I don't need, I believe in the golden rule to the nth degree. This, if you want to convert this to the golden rule, you do to me and I'll do this to you. That's what I read here. You know, she doesn't know the golden rule. She doesn't know anything about it, and it's just an abomination.
Well, and she's talking about working together with other communities. That you somewhere in this letter.
Yeah.
This is not working together, and this is within your own community.
Exactly. Spent 4 years trying to build that. Festivals, bring people downtown, because downtown is where people meet. What's happening to this community is what happened to Detroit at one time. Detroit is coming back because it has younger people that want to be community oriented. They want to live together, they want to communicate, they want to talk, they want to walk, they want to ride their bikes. Mm-hmm. We need to do that here. And we need to do it now.
Yeah.
Yet, this tears it apart.
Right.
This says, I think it was in 2012, her thing was, on the card she passed out, I like it just the way it is. Well, in 2012 is a stinking mud hole downtown.
That's right.
I like it just the way it is.
And this is what I heard at a recent question and answer.
Yeah, the Q&A at the Methodist Church. And that came out of Kevin Curtis's mouth. And everything that came out of his mouth was exactly the thing she said in 2012.
In 2012. Yeah, a lot of people noticed that.
Yeah, and articles in the newspaper, or letters to the editor in the newspaper that go, like from Trish Bilchowski, Kevin will not do this and Kevin will not do that. Well, why don't you let Kevin say that?
And there's not a speck of information on Kevin anywhere.
Right. Try and find anything about him. So, anyways, enough of that crap. I think I'm about had with trying to put up with this. It's unfortunate, but yeah, maybe the public will become aware of it.
Well, the smart ones are.
There's a lot of support out there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's amazing how many people have come to me and said, "Rick, you're doing a great job. You're doing an awesome job." That's the thing that makes all of this negativity go away.
And here's the other thing, and I've witnessed this. Walking with you in a park in another community, Milford, and residents from Milford are complimenting you on the job you're doing in Highland.
Yeah. Yeah, Chris and I, we'll walk on the walking path in by the YMCA.
That's right.
And people will come up and go, we're walking our dog, and they'll come, "Hey, Rick, and I'm like, who are you?" "Well, we live in Milford, but we know who you are. We see you in the paper, and we've seen how much good stuff you've been doing. Keep up the good job."
There's a whole ton of that. There's a ton of that out there.
All over Oakland County, the Main Street Group.
Mm-hmm.
Multiple awards that they've given to me that are totally a surprise to me. Go to an event and I get a special award because people from all over recognize that I'm a giver, not a taker.
Well,
and I've got things that add value and to our community, and this is a travesty to have somebody come in and try and take that away. Take it away from the people. It's not just me. They're taking it away from our board. They're giving our community. This is as stinky as the federal level. Bringing the Trump-Clinton thing to Highland.
That's exactly what
That's a sick thing to do. We never had that during the previous run. So, anyways, I gotta hit the sack, but it's good to at least it gets this off my chest. Somebody needs to hear it. We'll get it out there somehow. So.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, I'll talk at you later, Joe. It's fun.
All right, man.